So who are you and what you do today?
Yo guys, hi, I'm Aston. So today I got second at the Campus League of Singapore. So not too bad. I mean, overall, there were definitely a couple of matches I could have done better, but I think it was a pretty decent result today. So just give me a quick overview of my deck profile. So for context, I typically play Magisters, Dracotail Magisters typically. But for this profile, I'm showing a branded Dracotail variant, which I took to the league itself, and which got me my current placement. So let me quickly go over through the deck profile and the reason why I made certain changes. I think it seems like a pretty linear build, but maybe let's walk through why the build is the way it is. So of course, for the Dracotail stuff, triple Lucaris, triple Mululu and triple Femana. These are pretty straightforward and pretty standard. You might probably be wondering why some builds might reduce Mululu, but the reason should make sense since you don't want to always have Mululu in the hand. But you would rather have Mululu so that you can prevent things such as Maxi from resolving. Often the times you would normal summon Mululu, even though you might have Femana in the hand, just to ensure that you pass, give your opponent one less draw overall. So that is probably a consideration that OCG has over maybe the TCG, for example, which is why we stick to 3 instead of reducing it by 1. Next up, all for the one-offs. So for the one-off Dracotails will be 1 Frixel, 1 Pan and 1 Urgula. I know some builds play multiple because they want to make sure that they see a Urgula or maybe a Pan, but the key idea for this deck is consistency for especially longer tournaments, rather than bricking and hoping that, oh, maybe I can resolve my Femana to top stuff. I think the key idea is just to have one of the bricks and make sure that you have more playable stuff. That's why the current ratios are the way they are. Next up, let's go on to the branded side since all the Dracotail stuff is done. So for branded, 2 Fallen, and of course 1 of the OG himself. So the 2 white and Fallen of Albaz. Of course, the white is a super important extender for the deck. I think oftentimes the main thing, the reason why you play him as well is that you want to have him as an additional layer of interruptions after you complete your Dracotail board. So the main approach for the deck, to walk you through, would probably be to start with your Dracotail names first, to bait out any Ashes, to bait out any Maxis or Fuas. And then only when you are aware that your opponent doesn't have any hand traps and you have played through all of their interruptions, then you will go with Fallen to finish your board off with the quick play spell and the rest of the branded setup. So it's typically a secondary layer, never the first. Because if you start with this, you are giving your opponent a lot of draws from, let's say, a Maxi or a Fualos. Yeah, so no choice. That is the weakness of the card, but the advantage is that you don't need to play it first. And also do be aware of the lock as well, of having summoning only level 8s from the extra deck, Fusion or Synchro. So this, for some players, especially some mirrors, I pointed out to them, which kind of allowed me to have a sort of advantage in that game, but simply because they're aware of the cards. But just be aware of this if you are playing this deck. Okay, next up for the other branded cards, of course, we have one of Ecclesia and one of Cartesia itself. Cartesia is amazing, Ecclesia is also amazing because they are both amazing extenders. You can special summon this from hand if you have this guy in graveyard. So, special summon this from hand if your opponent has more monsters than you, so you can immediately start your plays and tribute off to threaten with Fallen. Or if not, you can immediately summon Cartesia as well. So when you summon Cartesia, you can also threaten a Dracotail name, which often at times the opponent will be forced to react. So especially if you're breaking into boards, you would rather see go with the branded engine first instead of opposite way around. So to reiterate once again, whenever you go first, you're probably Dracotail building a board, and then you'll go with the branded side. But in the inverse, when you are breaking a board, you go with the branded side first and then the Dracotail after. So that's the typical way I approach each game. Okay, that's now for the hand traps, everybody's favorite part of Yu-Gi-Oh! So triple Ash Blossoms, very standard, triple Fualos and double Maxi, almost a triple, oops. Yeah, don't worry, I play legally. Yeah, so this is the typical hand traps. We'll go for 2 Bell. So Bell, of course, not only ensures that all these pass from call by, not too bad, but also the fact that you can use this against Mirror. Any Dracotail variant will also get their traps eaten by Bell. And lastly, for the triplets will be Nip. Many people might run lesser copies of Nip, seeing that there are more Dracotails in the format, which is not a bad idea overall. But the main reason why you run triple Nip is to check every other deck and also check Dracotail players who are trying to overextend. Because in order for Dracotail to typically go for lethal, they will have to commit to at least 5 summons, unfortunately. So because of this in mind, if you always have this in hand, you will always survive. So keeping it at 3 is a necessity if you want to live to see another turn. And that's why I always recycle it and keep it in the deck.
I think there was actually one game I could have won if I recycled this back, because my opponent overcommitted heavily, but I just didn't have the foresight to go and add it back immediately. So this card is really insane, and it's basically a Dracotail name at this point. So add it back if you can. For the final hand trap, not really hand trap, half hand trap, will be Magnamut. Goated as always, but of course take it out for certain matchups. For example, you go into Exorcister, things that respond to graveyard removal. But this overall, I didn't see it. I only saw it once, so I think I saw it one game. But and it helped me for that one game. But other than that, I didn't see much. I'm okay with having him in the deck. Maybe you can consider cutting him for another hand trap, maybe another bell if you wish, depending on your format. But for my current format, I think he's okay in the deck. Yep. That's for hand traps. Now let's go to the spell and traps. So for spells, of course, we have your triple Rahu and one Ketu. Unfortunately, in the OCG, we only have one copy of this. A bit unfortunate, but it's the best card in the deck for sure and practically runs the deck. So normally, every time, whenever you would set 2 in the back row, please don't immediately assume that you jump to set Ketu straight away, especially when a lot of opponents do have ways to pop your back row and get rid of your back row. I was facing against some BS, even BS K9, some of these wheelchair decks were already crippled by the ban list. But the thing is, you always be aware that you are never going to set Ketu on your opponent's turn when you freeze or during your opponent's turn. So when you frame mana on your opponent's main phase, you can probably set double of these to just ensure that you at least go through with your plays, and even if they pop one, it will be useless to them. Or you can set another trap. Either or works well. But the main thing is you always want to make sure that this comes to your back row in your turn, never during your opponent's turn. So please keep this alive. It's the most important card to help you win your games. After all, you can use to go crazy plays. You can go into random cards like Secretarion or Chaos Dragon, where since this doesn't limit you specifically to Dracotail names. Yep. So please be aware. Yep, so those are the Dracotails. Then for the last 2 spells, it will just be one Branded Fusion and one the Fallen and the Virtuous. So honestly, I've never resolved this card once this whole day. It got Ash, I think 4 times. And once, I mean, it happens for sure. But it's probably a card that isn't so good now in terms of ashing it. And in fact, I recommend people to not ash this. Although if you're my opponent, sure, ash it straight away so that I can get value of the rest of my deck. Because the main part is never the branded style. Branded typically used to break boards. So this is what I would use typically just to bait out my opponent's ash, bait out all the interruptions. And then last one, the Fallen the Virtuous. So of course many people might be wondering, oh, why only one copy of this? Why not run more so that you have a lot of recursion? So the main idea for that is consistency. You don't want to see more of this. So in the event that, let's say, later on the extra deck, you'll see that there's only one Albion. So that single one Albion, if let's say you don't draw this, see this in your first turn, will be to get, when you send this as cost, you'll get this as your set card for the turn. And the turn after, if you are sending any other of your branded stuff to the graveyard, you'll set the Branded Fusion instead for follow-up. So it's typically not the type of deck where you will go into a long resource grind, but it is a mid-range deck at the end of the day. But if you see yourself needing to have more of these, I feel like you're probably not winning the game in the long run. So most of the time, you have one for that first to help you survive for that first turn, and after that you go for a game with a Branded Fusion. So that's typically the approach. Although I'm sure some people might dispute this, but this is just the way that I played it to make sure that I've been consistent. I've tried having 3 or 2, and I keep drawing this card. So not for me, but maybe you guys can. If you can do it and you talk, then kudos to you. Okay, so that's for the traps. The last 3, okay, this is also a bit controversial. So one of each trap. So of course, I will say that Dracotail has the aspect of being a quote-unquote a high roll deck when you have these kind of bricks where they don't do anything on your turn or only on your opponent's turn. You're forced to set them after all. But there are some matches where I actually won, even though I did have 2 of these in my hands. And I know it's hurt so much, but because my opponent will full out or maxi me, I already have this in my hand. I just need to set them. So you're sort of trying to play the mid-range game where you don't try to overextend, don't overcommit to the board. Just rely on the traps, because the traps will help you sort of give you a better pot of greed. You know, you got 1 draw each. So even if they ash or bell maybe 1, at least the other 2 will resolve. You get a draw 2. And often the times if you have a body on the board, Dracotail is very sticky in general. You usually have 1 Dracotail on the board. You can probably draw into a Femina, or you can draw into any of your other million hand traps of Nib or any of Bells, Maxis even, another Ash. So it's always a plus to have these cards, unless you're telling me you got 3 and no starters. That's a bit tough. it happens once in a while. But if you want to play this deck and the mid-range kind of grind game, mid-range, you probably need to see 3 of these. Especially if you know and played Dracotail previously before this support came out, before this and Frixo came out, you probably realize that the deck itself is not really that strong at creating a going first board by itself. So having these two is just sort of handicapping yourself. It's better to get this, and you can also account for certain decks such as Mitsurugi when they special one and add one back to hand. This will solve 2 of the problems. You can banish their spell and also banish their monster that they summon. So yeah, just to take note of this. Although you are free to put lesser. Now for the extra deck. Hopefully I'm not going too long. Let's go with, start with the 2 links, since these are more important, not as important. So Seals and SP. SP I only made it once, Seals not today so far. For the hands I had, generally I was locked before I could go into this. So please be aware that Branded Fusion, Mululu, and also the what's this called, the Fallen cards, they do lock you to either some aspect of your extra deck, be it fusions or synchros or level 8s. So you can't go into this on that turn, so please be aware. But SP is always for the turn after when you're trying to, in a simplified game trade, trying to remove certain traps. But not the main priority. So of course, let's go to the extra deck. Pretty proper. We go to our standard Draco Tails. 3 Arteron is compulsory, and one of this other one. So in case you might be wondering why not the new one, I think it's not bad as well. It's good to recycle, especially all the traps and spells with how much you recur and use. But it's not as important as the other names that you need in the deck to win the game. It's something that will help longevity and help the grind game, but it's not something I would recommend if you just want to quickly finish the game. Yeah. So I don't play it for now until there gets better support. Hopefully. And then the other pseudo Dragon Tails would be Chaos and Secretarion. Secretarion is good in the mirror, but also at the same time to help you OTK to target 2, special 1, and put the other bottom on the deck. This can help get a Mululu out, get a Frixo out. It's pretty important to get your OTKs and to protect yourself from your opponent's Draco Tails. And then Chaos Star Source, he's pretty strong and saved me quite a couple of times. Mainly because if you run out of resources, you're only able to fuse with Femina in hand, and you're not able to activate any of the Dracotail names that you fuse with. For example, you cannot activate Pen or Urgula because you have no spell traps in your deck. This guy will at least allow you to get 1 pop. So it may be a targeted pop, a little bit on the slower side, but the fact that it's a pop nonetheless is another layer of interruption that a lot of people don't expect you to fuse during their turn, throw Femina and then summon it out and then pop your opponent's, all your opponent's cards. Yep. So I do recommend him. He did carry quite a few games. Then for the branded stuff, of course the new Synchro, really strong. It's a really good bait for Ash and Bell. A lot of people will straight away try to aim for this card. So very good, especially when you're trying to break a board and they immediately assume you're going into the Fall of Albaz. So it's very good to start with this, and then you full steamroll them with the Draco Tail board. Of course the rest of them would be the stuff that you send as well, so Albion. Even though you can fuse with him as well, and he's pretty good with the Light Monster with Frixo. But most of the time you're using him with either the quick play spell just to mill and then get a branded spell at the end of the turn. It's pretty good. Or using the Fallen of White to summon. And then the rest of them are more utility. I would say out of all of them, probably of the typical branded stuff, I probably went into Mirror Jade the most, and Mirror Jade did carry quite a few games because the no target banish as always is always pretty solid. And of course the rest to get into Light and Dark are very good options. Albalantis is probably what I will cut from the whole extra deck because honestly there aren't that many good dragons to eat when you set your Fallen of Albaz. So I'll probably get rid of this for this format. But the rest I really like the ratios. Okay, let's move to the side deck for sure. So for the side deck, let's go with the triplets. So triple Lancia, triple Drow, and yep, those are my 2 triplets. So this will be for Mitsurugi Raizio, even VS Kena. I'm surprised I even faced 1 or 2 wheelchair decks today. But at the end of the day, those decks, especially when you're going to a tournament with a lot more random decks coming in, you probably want to have Drow in your team. And then Lancia for sure to keep Malice in check because Malice is still pretty strong in the OCG, hasn't been hit that severely. Next up, let's go into my last 3 monsters for the side deck. So Quacky Meru Draco. Quacky Meru Draco is pretty insane. He has won me 1 game, and you can just normal summon him and keep revealing Albaz. So just keep revealing Albaz and that's it for your opponent. Or you can of course get him through Seals, both very viable. And of course, I think this is probably my MVP for this tournament, honestly. I would say would be Delta. So you might be wondering why this card all of a sudden? Well, not only are you facing a lot of mirror matches where they have to resolve multiple spells to go all off for Dracotail, but you also have, for example, Mitsurugi. You have a lot of other decks that will use some spell card to reach to their end goal. Yeah. So even Malice, for example, even if Malice in Underground or any that goes Sarcophagus that you really want to stop, you only know they have one card in the hand left. This is actually a lifesaver sometimes. Yeah. So it's really good to have. And worst comes to worst, if you have to use him as fusion material, it's better than a trap in the sense where you can fuse it from hand with and add it back afterwards. So pretty insane. Yeah. So that's all for the monsters. Now for the last part of my side deck. The stuff that I'll use when I go first, all the pink/purple cards would be 2 Solemns, 1 anti-spell, 1 skill drain, dirty card, sorry, I know, 1 Tikaboo, and last but not least, Red Reboot. This is the only one going second for traps. As you know, Dracotail Mirror, you definitely want this on your side, or in fact most decks with floodgates, you probably just want to always have this. Yeah, as long as it's legal, play it please. But for this, generally it would be not only to stop Mirror, but also for Mitsurugi. Normally, if I had this in my hand, I'll play a bit more carefully. I'll mostly try to add back monsters that can fuse instead of focusing on the the spells. Yeah, so please be aware when you put this card in your deck of how you play. You add back Molulu, add back Femana, keep on recurring the monsters that can fuse. Skill Drain and Tikaboo are pretty standard, especially, but please don't put this for decks with really high monsters. For example, if you're putting against Mitsurugi, it might not be the best option since they have a 3/3 beat stick that comes to the board, even though they may not be able to search from the field. But all their stuff will activate in the graveyard, so there's no point in putting it for those kind of decks. For example, if you put against Malice, you might have a better time. Tikaboo as well. Also, pretty solid if you face against Yami, as everyone knows here. Yep, so that's for the side. Overall thoughts for the deck. I mean, other than the MVP, which I would say would be Delta for sure, and of course also I would say the other MVP would be in fact Mululu, definitely, because Mululu did help me get past quite a fair bit of Maxis and Fualos. So even though you sometimes might believe that you can get more value from immediately fusing with Femana, please always play the safer route, especially in the OCG. That's how typically I think we structure our deck and how we approach games is by giving up least amount of draws. Yep. So thoughts. Maybe I would probably call out one thing would be my siding patterns. So just a quick tip for any other Dracotail players out there. So basically, you might be wondering, oh, who do I let go first after I lose game 1? So I'll give you an example. I faced against a mirror. I lost game 1. So on game 2, after we were siding out, I let him go first after siding going second. And when I sided going second, I made sure to have at least 2 of the traps. So you might be wondering, oh, why would you do that? Well, the main idea behind letting your opponent go first after post-side is not only catch them by surprise 1, but number 2, most Dracotail mirrors, they'll probably only at most put 1 trap in the side into their main deck. So because of that, you will outgrind them simply because you have more traps in the main deck. So by letting them go first, you force them to activate all their cards, and then you're only able to set, I don't know, 2 Rahus and 1 trap, at most maybe 1 of the flame, the spell negate. But because of that, you can straight away wipe out most of their board because you have Ketu life, Rahu life on your turn, and you can basically outgrind them when you set 2 to 3 traps. So you have 1 extra effect of a Dracotail monster resolving in the graveyard compared to your opponent. So because of that, I was able to win 1 or 2 games because of that, just in the mirror match when I face these kind of opponents. So just a quick tip for y'all, in case y'all are trying to decide who to go first, that is one strategy you can do to secure a win, just by outgrinding them. Yep. Other than that, I think that's it for the profile.
Any shoutouts?
Shoutouts are probably definitely shout out everybody within the typical testing group that we have, our gang. So of course, shout out to the person behind the camera, Shane, also tested with us before this campus league itself. Shout out to Loyi, who also in the campus league, who also had another profile. Amazing player. Oh man, if we didn't meet each other, I think you're gonna be instant top. Champion. Yeah. Other than that. Of course, the rest of the team, CL, Gao Jiev, everyone for testing as well. T as well for being also a great Dracotail player, and also for helping us raise the Dracotail stakes and learning the intricacies of the deck. So overall, I would definitely, I'm just very thankful to everyone who has participated with us thus far. And thanks for watching, everyone. Peace.